and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I am so pleased to get to interview people with big stories. This time, I found out more and more about Story, and even the story of her name is wonderful. So join me for the rest of the story. The rest of the story was what Paul Harvey used to say.
It is. That certainly is.
And today it's your turn.
Oh.
What is the rest of the story? Your name is?
Lassie Smith.
Lassie Smith. Now that's a very common name, the Smith part.
Yes.
But the Lassie's unusual.
Yes, and that came from my birth when they didn't have a name picked out for a girl. So they named my first name after the doctor that delivered me, who was a friend and benefactor of the family. And she had a bird that was named Lassen, after Peter Lassen of Mount Lassen. They said, well, that goes with Edith, so that's what they did. They named me Lassen, and they shortened that to Lassie right away. And part of that was because there is Scotch in my ancestry, and so.
Well, now there's Scotch, but a few other things.
Yeah, Scotch, Irish, and Indian on my father's side.
Now the Irish connection, was that a story you knew about?
Not a lot, except that we were encouraged to be proud of our Scotch and Irish ancestry.
And how about your Indian ancestry?
Absolutely. We were always taught that that was something that we should be very proud of, that we were actually related to Sitting Bull. Now, this is anecdotal. We've never been able to totally prove it, but that was what our father said. And if you could watch him walking away, far away from you so you couldn't see his coloring, because he had the Scotch coloring, you would think you were looking at an Indian man walking.
Well, now, are you talking this lady?
That lady was Scotch.
Okay, and she's married?
To Mr. Brown. I cannot momentarily say his first name.
Mr. Brown is
my grandfather, and he was Scotch, Irish, and Indian. I mean, he was Irish and Indian. I'm sorry, the Scotch came
She's
from
the
her.
Scotch one.
She's the Scotch part.
And she is quite educated, is that right?
Fairly well, yes. She was a midwife and delivered all of her own children and the children of many people around her out there on the plains.
How can you deliver your own child?
I don't know. I have wondered that myself.
Now, she had as what I understand about this, she had real presence.
Yes, yes.
Why was it she didn't like Dad to talk a lot?
Well,
Granddad.
we have hypothesized that the reason for that was it would reveal the Indian ancestry, that some way he would drop something, because in those years, you didn't want to be part Indian.
But
it
your
was
family,
a terrible thing.
But your family wanted you to be part Indian. There was no doubt about it.
Absolutely. It was something that we should hold up our heads and be proud of.
And mine, this family, Irish origin, and of course, when they came to Canada as poverty-stricken people, that wasn't anything to be proud of either, yet somehow we go around bragging about being Irish and having shoes and socks, which our ancestors didn't have much when they came to this new world. I love your story. I just love your story because you went from Midwest. Actually, they didn't start in the Midwest. They moved out to Nebraska?
Well, my father started in Nebraska, moved to Kansas, and then over to Los Animas, Colorado. And I still have many relatives that live in that area, and their old home place is still there, and I was able to visit it once.
Oh, wonderful. But you had roots, family roots, that went back to Nebraska, where my husband's family came from. Small, small world, you know. Uncle Kent was the lieutenant governor of Nebraska for many, many years. He was the only one that was educated in the family. They could afford to educate one person. Now, what was your house like in Nebraska?
Oh, it wasn't myself that lived in Nebraska. It was my brother.
Okay, and he lived in?
He lived in North Pat.
But where was this Soddy that the family lived in?
It was over in the Herman, Nebraska area.
Because Soddys are holes in the ground.
That's right.
Dirt floors. And then what wood you can find, you built beams over the top, and then you went
and used mud to make the walls
and grasses and whatever thick stuff, and that became sod. Just like, oh my goodness. And we both have houses now. Where's your house?
Well, it's somewhere there on the plains, and wherever it was, they were close to the Indians' reservation, and perhaps even part of it. I don't really know that. But my father said that there were these men that then they called hard cases. We would call them criminal probably now. At any rate, they came into the yard riding their horses and wanted something. Well, at the same time, leaning up against the building was this Indian man wrapped in a blanket. My father told us this story many times, and he said that they came to the door and grandmother met them and to see what they wanted. At the same time, he said this Indian man got up, went around the corner, dropped his blanket, and took off through the ravines and gullies. And of course,
what did that man want? Or there were several men?
There were several of them. And they just wanted food and food for their horses. But of course, the Indian man didn't know that.
Maybe that's all they wanted.
Yes, maybe.
And if she wouldn't provide food for them, then they probably...
Who knows what they would have done?
Take
because they were
food.
just what they said, hard cases. And so
new word.
A new old word.
Okay.
At any rate, my father said within a half an hour, that place was ringed with Indians. He said if those men had lifted a single finger against their family or against my grandmother, they would have been dead men.
We're protected by all kinds of angels, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And that First Nation family, that, you know, they obviously had wonderful rapport with these people in the pioneer days. Well, then what brought you from, I mean, it wasn't a real prosperous time out there for your family.
No, I don't know. They moved down then to Warren, Kansas. And there they settled for a time, and then they moved on and found a ranch over in Los Animas, Colorado, and there they stayed then until my father was quite a lot older. But he was basically a plains cowboy.
Ah.
And so that's what he did for a living.
And then if he came out, when he came out west, there wasn't much need for a plains cowboy.
No, so he became a driver of stagecoaches in Arizona, but that's when they made the first motorized stages, so he was the driver of some of the first motorized stages in Arizona.
Oh my goodness. You never know when I start asking questions what I'm going to learn. There was a time without buses.
Yes.
There was a time without trains, and my guests know those stories. Keep telling me more, please.
Well, he would drive this motorized stage to different towns, somewhere around Globe, Arizona. And at one time, he had a pet mountain lion.
Oh, sure, sure.
He
Oh.
did. He had a friend that was a government hunter and killed the mother and brought home the 2 kittens. And he kept one of them, and Litmore, his friend, kept the other one. So he fashioned a pen at one of his stage stops, and that's where Puss, his mountain lion pet, stayed. And when he'd come in with the stage, why, he would go over and get her, and there was a branch that came out over the area where he stopped with the stage, and he would stop there, and sometimes she didn't come right out. He would go on into the stage station with the other guests where they would freshen themselves up or get a little something to eat or whatever was available.
Change horses.
Whatever was necessary. And so one time there was this gentleman that was a politician, and he said he didn't want to go in, he just wanted to stay on the stage. And so my father said, all right, they all went in, and when they came out, he was gone. They couldn't find him anywhere. He said he just wanted to stay and rest. And they looked and looked, and finally, way up the road, they saw him up there. So they got in and took off, and they said, when they got to him, they said, well, we thought you were just going to rest. Oh, no, he said, I'm leaning back there, and he said, I looks up and sees this lion looking me right in the eye, and it says, meow, meow, and he said, not now, not ever. And left,
And
of course.
he left. Oh, how do we know when something is friendly and something is your enemy?
We don't. He
have a
had no
clue.
way of knowing. Daddy hadn't told him that this was his pet lion, and so he had no way of knowing that that was a gentle mountain lion.
Well, somehow you've told me that you moved from, how many times do you think you moved as a child?
As a child, well,
How about 10, 20?
oh, at least 20. Because I think in my first school year, we had ended up in Colorado, in Golden, Colorado. And my parents communicated with her sister, who lived at Morgan Hill, California, that she had a property there she'd like to have them come and live on. And so if they could move back there, they would be able to live on that property. And we started out, and I believe that I went to 7 different schools that year, Mother said.
Oh my.
I don't remember all of them, but...
And you've become a businesswoman. You've become a manufacturer of Wagner Electronics. You've become a candy maker.
Well, I don't make it really. My daughter makes it, but I do supporting tasks and help to run the store.
These candies, watermelon, fudge, dark fudge, vanilla fudge. How many kinds?
125 flavors she's made.
All that in a little town of Drano. And when you go to Drain on old Highway 99,
That's right.
you have to notice that the street comes down, makes a right angle turn, goes 4 blocks,
About that.
makes a right angle turn.
No.
That's the way towns were in the olden days. That's the way this is. This is your town?
Yeah, that's the old train station. I'll get it right here pretty soon. The old train station there.
That took you clear from Seattle to, well, probably Canada to Mexico again.
Yeah, it was quite a feat that they did, that they managed to build that. They tried to go out to the coast, but that was not successful, so it ended up with the main station in Eugene.
Oh, yeah, well, we used to have a main station here in Southern Oregon, then it went up through Eastern Oregon. And so if I want to go on the train, I have to take the bus or car or get a ride to Klamath. And they don't have good times to get, you know, you can get on the train in the middle, oh dear.
3 o'clock in the morning or something?
Yeah,
Yes.
something like that. Now, is this picture you?
No, that's my older half-sister. And that was probably taken in North Dakota, I think, that picture there. I think she may have lived there at that time.
Oh, and who's the sailor boy?
That's my cousin. This is his father when he was a bit younger. That's this man here, Provost Dean Wilson. He was the postmaster for a number of years at Toppenish, Washington.
So you folks have spread out from California, Washington, and Oregon from your roots way back when. Yeah, there's the sailor boy.
That's him. He served on a sub-chaser in the First World War.
First. And how old was he when he went in?
He was just 17. He lied about his age to get in, but he was a big man. He was like 6'4", and so...
Fake it till you can make it,
him.
huh? I've heard it. Those were tough times with unemployment and all. And some people, like my friend Bill Young, just told him he was 17 and 18, and
yeah,
nobody argued it with him. You've got a ton of stories. Let me see if I can't find that train. Downtown in the olden days in Yoncalla. Oh,
the folder there, I think, has...
Yoncalla and Drain, and Oakland, how far apart were these little towns?
Well, Drain and Yoncalla are about 5 miles apart, more or less. But it's a little farther down to Oakland. I'm not sure exactly how many miles it is.
Oakland's one of the oldest oldest towns, and they have this wonderful hotel there. Oh, we just sat down in the chair with the doily behind you, and with the big candy counter over here, and the fountain counter over here, and the fancy dining rooms. The ceiling's only about this high. And nowadays, of course, they wouldn't let you have a restaurant like that. But since it was history, it's predated. These places that they have kept, in fact, in the maybe 20 years ago, they even had a horse-drawn carriage that would take you from that restaurant to the hotel. I don't think they still do that.
No, I think you're right.
Oh, that was so much fun. We'd moved from the Bay Area in California, and to just feel like the clock had turned backwards, and you were there the way things used to be. So many of those buildings all have plaques on 1890s, 1906, whatever. Tell me about your town. What are the buildings besides this gorgeous mansion?
We have...
By the drains?
Yeah, Charles and Anna Drain built a castle, and that's what it's termed even today. And it's... Where did we lay the picture of that?
Well,
Bernie? Here
later.
someplace. Anyway, then we also have the Hazard House.
Hazard?
Yes, and this Hazard House has a marvelous history.
Is that a people's name, or is
It
that
was their name.
trouble?
No, it was Hasard. And he...
Really rich people?
Oh, I don't think they were terribly rich, but that house evolved into a mortuary. And then somewhere along the line, it became a library, and word of mouth from a very good friend that's lived there most of her life tells me at one time that it was a bawdy house. But now it houses a family. They live there, and the lady of the house has a little shop in the side of it.
Speaking of little shops, there's all kinds of wonderful things. See, this town is on the way from
Reedsport to well, wherever you want to go. If you go south, then you go to Yoncalla, Sutherland, Oakland, and Sutherland. Or if you go north, you go right into Cottage Grove and north to Eugene.
All those are on the old 99. It's fine road. And people go to the coast, so they want to stop and have a treat.
Absolutely.
Candy, treat. Not only that, 2 doors down from you or next door is an antique store.
Yes, right next door. Nella's Antiques.
And 2 doors up from you is
Two Fat Ladies Bakery.
Folks, do you believe it? 2 Fat Ladies Bakery, and they love it.
Yes.
And they both have a few extra pounds and a big smile this big. And they are so hospitable. I mean, it's worth going on your Sunday drive just to see it. How long did it take you to get down here?
Oh, it only took me probably an hour and 3/4.
Well, thanks for coming this way. I want to ask you more about these pictures. What in the world have you brought so much? What is this about?
Well, this one here is my mother's operator's license from, this one is at Ronerville, California, and it was 1946.
What was she doing in 46? Operating what?
Just a car, probably, with her.
That's a driver's license? Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
I thought, did she work in the military?
No,
in the
no,
war?
she did nursing, and so she worked as a licensed practical nurse and cared for people.
Now,
that one is in Winnemucca, Nevada.
we have television in Nevada now.
We do.
And it's really exciting because Better Life has expanded clear into online world around. So if you want your kids to see it and they live in eastern Kansas or let's say down in South America, they just go online to betterlifetv.tv, dial down to Journeys and Journals, and there you are.
Wonderful.
Who would have ever guessed? Who would have ever guessed? What are some of the best things that's ever happened to you in your whole life?
Oh my, that is really a difficult question, Bernie. Just so many good things have happened to me.
Well, you've raised these 2 kids.
Well, actually,
3?
well, there's kind of 4 because I have 2 that live here in the Grants Pass area, and
1 in Yoncalla. Oh, Drain.
Drain, 1 in Drain and 1 in Cottage Grove. So
you keep
I
it
have,
real handy.
Yes. So this way I can come down here and visit the 2 that are here. And I see the one in Cottage Grove fairly frequently.
And you've lived all over. You know, when you think of moving again, your daughter asked you to move here, is that right, when you had been widowed?
Well, not too much, no. No, she, because I was already involved with the Tammy of Tammy's Fabulous Fudge, that daughter. And so probably we kind of had the aim of just staying where I'm at.
Okay, brag a little bit about the family origin of your town of Yoncalla,
Of
Drain. It didn't start out, it started out as a
lumber and logging town. It was just tremendous.
1850 something?
1850s. Mm-hmm.
And who was the first claim that got this property?
Yeah, I'll need to refresh my memory on that there, Bernie, just a second here.
Well, the man then sold the property,
Warren Goodell.
and he sold the property
Then to
the Applegates,
yes,
one of the boys.
Jesse Applegate.
Well, it was to Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesse sold it to
Charles Drain. And
now you know why the town's named Drain.
right,
Because Charles was pretty proud of his name, I'm sure.
absolutely. But do I dare to tell a little joke that it's a common joke in the community? Do you know, Bernie, why Oregon is so wet?
No.
It's because there's only one drain.
Oh my goodness, there is. That's worth taking home, folks. Oh, well, each town has its charm, and if you'd like to share the story about your town, San Francisco, or your town in Vancouver, Washington, get in touch with Better Life TV. And if you know more stories, I just heard about someone that's crazy over insulators on the power poles. I don't know a lot about the history of those, but I'm interested.
Oh, yes. They are fascinating. I don't know much about them either. I have a few in my yard, but, you know.
I don't read well, but I sure do love to learn. I had a stroke when I was 21 years old, and so that's who I am, and that's why I don't take notes. I just sit here like, please tell me more.
Bless your heart.
Tell me more. The whole idea of being on Better Life TV was fun for you.
Oh, it was delightful. This has just been a real honor to be able to share with you and with others then too some of the things that have happened in the past and that shouldn't die. They should be kept alive.
And that's the story we want to share with all of you. Share your stories. Write them down. Better yet, use a tape recorder.
Yes.
And if the kids come by and say, tell me a story, take time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that's too bad or too good to share. That's who we are.
That's it.
Thank you again for coming all this way.
Thank you for having me, Bernie. It's been an honor.
What fun it is to share. And I hope you'll do that too. I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying bye for now. See you next week.